Hello, this is Jane Goodall. What the world needs. First, we need a clear understanding that climate change, loss of biodiversity, and the pandemic are all disasters that we brought upon ourselves by our disrespect of nature and animals. Clearly, we need a new relationship with the natural world. We need to understand we can't have unlimited economic development on a planet with finite natural resources and a growing population. Because the lifestyle of the affluent society places an unsustainable demand on the resources of the natural world, we need to change that. We need a new definition of success that doesn't just depend on obtaining wealth and power, but about living in harmony with nature and each other. We must alleviate poverty, as the very poor harm the natural world simply in order to survive, cutting down trees to grow more food or make money from charcoal. In cities, the poor buy the cheapest junk food just in order to survive. They're unable to ask if it harmed the environment or is cheap because of unfair wages. We need to phase out industrial farming with its reliance on chemical, toxic pesticides and herbicides that are so devastating to biodiversity and kill the soil. We need to move towards small family farms, regenerative agriculture, and so on, ban unsustainable commercial fishing, and move towards a sustainable plant-based diet. All this for the health of the planet and our own. We must recognize that animals are not just commodities, they're sentient beings, each one crowded in our factory farms, shipped around the world, sold in wildlife markets, suffering in medical and pharmaceutical research labs. Each one is an individual capable of feeling fear, despair, and pain. Every business should operate according to sustainable, ethical standards that ensure fair wages along the supply chain, support local communities, and show respect for the environment. We need to reconnect the natural world of which we are a part and on which we depend. All schools should provide information on climate change, loss of biodiversity, and what can be done about it, and especially for young children, encourage outdoor education. We all need to understand different cultures and religions and obey the golden rule common to every major religion: do to others as you would have them do to you. Finally, the world needs hope, because without hope we fall into apathy and do nothing, and then we're doomed. But each and every one of us needs to take action and understand that we make an impact on the planet every single day, and we can choose what sort of impact we make, what we buy, how we treat animals and each other. Millions of ethical choices, even small ones, cumulatively move us towards a better world for all. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome back. Life throws many mysteries in our journey. Some we spend entire life to understand. One of the most important mystery is the concept of moksha. Let us try to get some answers from our expert guests in this discussion on moksha, destination or mirage. We welcome Yogacharya Bharata Bill Francis Barry and Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani and our very own Dr. Manjiri Prabhu to the IFSI studio. Yogacharya Bharata Bill Francis Barry, MEd, MBA, has been a practitioner of yoga since 1969 and a spiritual teacher since 2010. He's a devoted student of Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani and an active supporter of the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at Ananda Ashram in Pondicherry, India. Bharata is also a priest in the lineage of Sadguru Sant Keshav Das of Bangalore. Since he created Mantra Vijaya in 2010, Bharata has taught at various locations in the United States, Canada, and internationally to online students in dozens of countries. His teachings emphasize the development of experiential yogic knowledge based on Vedic scriptures of classic yoga texts as taught by authentic traditions and respectful scholarship. Bharata serves on the board of directors of Santana Dharma Satsang, a non-profit organization. Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani is the director of the Center for Yoga Therapy Education and Research and professor of yoga therapy at the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University, Pondicherry. He is also the chairman of the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at Ananda Ashram, Pondicherry, India, and Yoganjali Natyalayam, the premier institute of yoga and Carnatic music and Bharatanatyam in Pondicherry. He is the son and successor of the internationally acclaimed yoga team of Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Gitanand Giri Guru Maharaj and Yogacharini Kalaima Mani Ammaji Srimati Minakshi Devi Bhavdani. A fellow of Indian Academy of Yoga, he's authored 19 DVDs and 23 books on yoga, as well as published more than 250 papers, compilations, and abstracts on yoga and yoga research in national and international journals. He's also EC member and director publications of the Indian Yoga Association and Board of Directors Council for Yoga Accreditation International. Dr. Manjiri Prabhu is an award winning international author of 18 books, mystery and thriller writer, a short filmmaker, and the curator and founder director of two international festivals, Pune International Literary Festival and International Festival of Spiritual India for Humanity and Wisdom. She's also an animal welfare activist promoting caring and adoption of stray dogs for more than 35 years. We request Dr. Prabhu to begin this exciting but intense conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rucha. Dr. Bhavanani, Yogacharya Bharataji, welcome to IFSI. Such a pleasure having you here today. And, just to right people to answer some questions on this concept called moksha. I've always been fascinated by this word moksha. It's such an enigmatic word. It opens you to interpretations, vistas of imagination. It's used so loosely. Like I've always said, whenever somebody says, oh, in my next life, I'm going to be this, and oh, I want to be this. And I say, no, I want moksha. I don't even know the meaning of that word actually in the real sense. But I've always felt that this is my last life on this earth and I'm going to attain moksha. And someone said, oh, it's not that easy. It's not that easy to have moksha. And I say, I don't know about that. I want moksha. So today I really want to understand at the end of the session whether I can attain moksha through your knowledge and wisdom. So let's start. I'm going to leave the floor open to you. Just let it all come, your knowledge and your wisdom. And I want to know, what is moksha? We can start with Dr. Anandaji. Yes.
Okay, fine. Namaste, Dhanyavadaha, and my usual greetings of Swagatam, Bonjour, Buongiorno, Buonasera, Buonanotte, Huya More, Boreda, Kio Ora, Salamat Pagi, Ayu Bovan, Ayushman Baba, and Salom to everyone out there being part of this International Festival of Spiritual India. The topic that Manjiri has brought up is moksha. And moksha is something which has so much of hypothetical matter and materials, you can fill the whole planet with books on it. But then she's asked us a very practical question. Can I get it? Can I attain it? And I think that is where the rub of the green comes in, because we all want it. And sometimes we don't know what it is, but we still want it. And this is where, to know what it is, to know that each and every individual is a potential candidate for moksha. So everybody is a potential candidate. So yes, Manjiri, you are a potential candidate for moksha. But for that to happen, we have to do the first things first.
Yes.
And I think when we do the first things first, the last things will happen on their own. So moksha as liberation, freedom, is a concept that we find in our Vedantic thought. Moksha is more rightly a term from Vedanta, and already Bipin Chandra is asking us moksha and nirvana. And yes, I was going to just say that, so you are reading my mind. What happens is moksha is a term used in Vedanta, whereas the Buddhist term would be nirvana. The term in Sankhya and Yoga would be kaivalya. And you also have another term, mukti. So mukti, moksha, nirvana, kaivalya, and sometimes people also use the term samadhi as a synonym. But in the yogic perspective, samadhi is something much, much different. So we are restricting ourselves to the final liberation, the final freedom, where we once again realize who we truly are. The drop becomes the ocean once again. So with those introductory remarks, I would like to go over to my dear Bharata ji and share his wisdom.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda ji. Thank you, Manjiri, for this opportunity, this wonderful festival that you created. The very good news is that while we've got this abstract, hard to get our hands around concept of moksha, the very good news is that there are practical methods. There are practical scientific methodology in the yoga teachings that when we do the practice, we can make progress. And while we don't focus on this abstraction, we focused on doing the practices properly according to an authentic yoga tradition, performing the practices as taught by our teacher, that teacher that we trust from that authentic yoga tradition. So in terms of the question of what is moksha, a couple of quick working definitions to help clarify things perhaps. There's a common teaching that moksha is liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. Moksha can be seen, understood as an ultimate transformation of our identity, a total transformation of our identity. The path to moksha is not an intellectual pursuit. It's not something we analyze and dissect, and we don't make progress by discussing and by reading about it. We make progress on this path by doing the practices that we learn. Moksha is not, it's not the glorification of the time-bound ego personality that's going to attain some higher heavenly state. Moksha is a total transformation of our individual identity, which is replaced by, through practice, through progress on the path, our personal, localized, individual identity is replaced, is transformed and replaced by rediscovering the divine self, the higher self, the immortal, eternal part of ourselves that we can become one with. We leave the realms of duality to the non-dual state. And as mentioned, we do that by looking to the authentic teachings found in the scriptures, found in the great Vedic texts, the Upanishadic texts, some of the classic yoga texts. We look to those scriptures and texts as translated by the advanced rishis, the advanced yogis who understand the abstract concepts of the specific terms and concepts. Some people will point out that the term moksha is first used in the Upanishad scriptures, which is a later text. However, the concepts of the relationship between the individual and the cosmic self, between the individual and the Param Brahma, the Paramatman, that relationship is defined and explained in the earliest Rig Veda texts. So these are ancient teachings rooted in the Sanatana Dharma tradition. So
I think that's a beautiful perspective you have given, Bharata. And I was just thinking, the word transformation applies as long as we are still the individual. And then I think from that transformation, we go into a transcendence. And I think that is the beautiful experience which the rishis have experienced and shared with us. It's a beautiful experience. And again, I think one of the struggles people have, and so beautifully you pointed out, is it is no amount of talking about it will make it happen. No amount of reading about it will make it happen. We have to make it happen by doing the right things. So there is a clear-cut pathway given by the tradition of Sanatana Dharma. Thank you for highlighting that. I think this is very important that we have that highlight.
But thank you for that, both of you. It brings me to a very basic core question. You spoke about the divine self, but what is the divine self? I mean, I always keep asking myself, who am I? What is my soul? What is my soul going to do? What is my soul journey? Why am I on this earth? What is my purpose? These are questions I think which hound a lot of people who are trying to understand life. So maybe both of you can, shed some light on this. How do you find out who the soul is? What is my purpose? What is my journey? And yeah, basically that. Maybe Dr. Ananda, you can start.
Yeah. You see, there's this search for who we are is well brought out by the teaching of Koham. Koham, which is the origin of the Zen koan. The koan has come from Koham, which means who am I? And the great Maharishi Ramana, he used to in Tamil ask that question as Nan Yar. Who am I? As a Tamil question, Nan Yar. Koham. And our Sanatana Dharma says Koham is answered by Soham. So Koham, Koham, Soham, Soham. So who am I? Who am I? I am that. I am that. That I am. Soham, that I am. And the question comes then, is this another ego trip that I am God and so all of you worship me? Well, that is still the ego. Because this divinity that we are talking about, the divine self we are talking about, is the universe itself. It is the consciousness of the universe. It is that which is wholesome. It is that which is Purnam, that which is complete. And just as from the ocean, a drop comes out and the drop has an individual experience, we as a Jiva Atma, an individual self, come out of that universal self and then think, hey, I am me. So this I am me and that I-ness, me-ness is because we have come away from that wholesomeness. So the whole process of moksha is regaining, reattaining once again that oneness that has been lost. And so we are not gaining something new. It is not a new experience. So when people talk about it, they say Jivatma unites with Paramatma. So it is union. I say it's not union, it's reunion. It is communion because you are coming back together. That which was one has become many. That which is many once again becomes one. And that process of the many becoming one is the whole process of moksha. And what is that oneness? That is what we call the divine self, the Atma, the Brahman, the Paramatma. So many terms are found in our literature.
What about Dr. Bharata? Yogacharya Bharata, what would you like to add to that?
The great Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi, is the summary of what Dr. Anandaji just shared. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. I am that Paramatman. I am that great Purusha. So Dr. Ananda has introduced the term Atma, the Atman. The Atman can be understood as that access way that's within each being, that link that is within us, that is an essential part of the pathway to moksha. We attune to that inner experience. The process of performing the authentic yoga practices, all 8 limbs of the yoga teachings of Maharishi Patanjali, all 8 limbs of yoga are essential components. And in order to approach the Atman, in order to proceed on this path, we have to understand it's an inner journey. We have work to do on all levels, but it's an inner journey. We follow the traditions, the teachings of the yoga tradition, which teach us about abhasya, self-effort, is a key component. We do the practice. As Dr. Ananda's dear mother, Amaji, spoke of, regularity, repetition, and rhythm. We do the practice. We do the daily practice with focused attention, with sankalpa that is of the highest nature. We include in the practice of vairagya, which is that objectivity, that dispassionate detachment. And now this is a paradox. We do the practices to the best of our abilities, but we let go. We do the best, and then we leave the rest to the divine forces. That doesn't mean we surrender. It doesn't mean we give up. We trust those divine forces that when we are doing the practices properly, we make progress. And the good news is that we see that progress. We experience that progress daily. How do we approach?
I love that fact that you brought in the rhythm, repetition, regularity, because that is the key. Because so many people, they just try a little bit and give up. So, I tried to get moksha once and, I didn't get it. And you're like, what did you do? Well, I sat still for 60 minutes. And like, if sitting still for 60 minutes gave you moksha, well, not too many of us would be around here. So, it's much more than that. But everybody thinks, you just have to do these small things. And I think an even bigger danger is people think somebody can do it for you. Now, when it comes to moksha, nobody can do it for you. Okay? You have to do it for yourself. The effort has to be made by the individual. And as the Bhagavad Gita tells us, Uddaret Atma Atmanam. It is by the self you have to lift the self. Nobody else can do it for you. So no amount of peacock feathers on your head or somebody tapping your shoulder or having a special enlightenment incense, none of that is going to work. One has to put in the hard work and do the first things first. And as Bharata ji so beautifully put it, that combination of abhyasa with vairagya, doing your best. You have to do your best, push forth and make the effort continuously, non-stop, repetition, regularity, rhythm, constantly focusing, uninterrupted towards the highest purpose, all of that. And then be ready to let go when you have done your best. So you have to do your best, do all the things, and then there's a point you have to let go if that final liberation is to occur. Because as long as you're holding on, you're still on the ladder. So, you climb the ladder, but then you have to let go of the ladder to reach where you need to reach. And I think this is the big struggle for the ego, because the ego doesn't know when to let go. The ego doesn't know when to let go because it keeps on thinking the more I have, the better I am, which is a materialistic perspective. So I need more techniques. I need more gurus. I need more ideas. No, you have it already in you. Because we all are potential candidates for moksha. So we have the whole blueprint in us. Once we find that, that is the role of the guru, then we have to go forth. So do your best, leave the rest is really, really a beautiful message for that one.
Dr. Anandaji, what I gather from all of this is that moksha is in a way going back to the source, right? The source. And for that, there's a journey. I'm assuming that there's a journey and there's a certain practice that you have to, practice. So what are the essentials? I would like to know. I mean, I know for you, it's very easy to say, we have to go, we have to do this, we have to do this. It's a big ocean out there. For somebody like me, who's a common person, is there, like you said, a real blueprint which says you do this, this, and this is where you'll reach? Could you simplify it for us a little bit?
I like that. Can you give us a capsule?
Yes.
The capsule. Actually, already our rishis, as Bharata ji said, the whole path of Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhaya, Ashtau Angani. There is a path. Already there is a path given which says, fulfill your dharma. Dharma is to be lived. Your righteousness, your duty, the purpose for which you are born has to be lived. And automatically, when you live your dharma, dharma is the foundation of everything. It is the bedrock of everything. So when you live your dharma, the artha kama will automatically happen and automatically moksha will also come. Dharmartha kama mokshanam chaturvida purushartham, says Sanatana Dharma. So live your dharma, fulfill your dharma. When you fulfill your dharma, automatically artha, all the material needs will be fulfilled. All the kama, the emotional needs will be fulfilled. And moksha, the spiritual needs will be fulfilled. So living one's dharma, what are we here for? What is the purpose of my life? Becomes an every moment 24-hour sadhana, which then enables moksha to happen. So it is not a secret technique. It is doing what you need to do, where you are, in the way you need to do it. And this is where that mindfulness, all the techniques of yoga are enabling that mindfulness to manifest so that we can see where we are, what we need to do, and how we need to do it. And by doing what we need to do, we slowly and steadily progress towards that final goal, mukti, moksha, nirvana, kaivalya, whatever it may be. So Ashtanga Yoga Maharishi Patanjali is one of the best paths that I know of. And the second one is live your dharma, your swadharma.
One quick question. I just remembered reading a quote of Ammaji's, and she said that we get this life, the human life, after living 85 lakh other lives. Is that right? Am I right with the number?
It's about 84 lakhs.
84 lakhs, yes, which is like huge. And so we've got this life. Does that mean that once we have this life, no matter what, we are going to attain moksha at the end of it?
Not this life, because we don't just get one human life. We have multiple human incarnations.
Okay.
So, it's not that you just get one human incarnation. There are multiple human incarnations. And the better we learn the lessons of this incarnation, the less we have to repeat it. In school, if you don't learn the lessons of that class, you have to repeat it. So, if you learn the lessons, you pass the exam, you don't have to attend it again. It is the same thing. So if we learn the lessons of life, the better we learn the lessons of life, well, the more chances of making it in this life. But there are multiple human incarnations. So it is not just one human incarnation. There are multiple levels of, sort of the animal human, what they call the animal man, the man, the divine man, this type of growth. Aurobindo talks about it. So many of the philosophers and the great rishis have talked about this evolution that is there. And even in the human, there will be from the tamasika to the rajasika to the sattvika. So the thing is, the good news, once we have a human incarnation, we have the power of choice, and the power of choice can be used to choose to do what we need to do to fulfill our dharma. And the more we start to make the right choices, the more clear the path becomes, and the more chances of hitting the jackpot.
Right. There's one interesting question. I'm going to share it. Maybe Doctor. Maybe one second. Can you show that, Sonia? Yes. So maybe Yogacharya Bharata, you can take this question. We often say that our life path is in this birth is predestined and unchangeable. Does that apply to multiple births too? And then how can we escape that and reach nirvana using some shortcut? there comes that shortcut again.
When we are born into the current incarnation, our opportunities have been aligned by the divine forces such that the portion of our karmic heritage that we've created for ourselves, our prarabdha karma, is represented in the location of our birth, in the timing of our birth, in the community, in the parents we have. In the bigger picture, one of the very important points about this multiple lifetime sequence is that as the great Sri Krishna taught in the Bhagavad Gita, the yogi on the path that has not attained the higher states, but then their physical life ends, in their next life, they pick up where they left off. They build upon the progress they made last time around. The teaching is that if they are an advanced soul, they are born into the family of yogis. So that's a key point on this. Another key point is that there's a saying about material wealth and material gains that you cannot take it with you. Well, sure, that's true. But the good news is the more important wealth, the wealth of our spiritual progress, as embodied in the layers of ourselves. We've got this physical body, but we're much more than this physical body. And when the physical body of one incarnation ends, the pranamaya kosha, the multiple layers of ourselves, where our progress has been established, that is still with us. That's the cornerstone of our next incarnation. So this question of predestination, I think that the most important answer to that question is we have an opportunity right now. We have an opportunity in this incarnation. We proceed. One of the cornerstones of these techniques is swadhyaya. It is one of the five niyamas. Swadhyaya is introspection, self-analysis. It's know thyself. It's turning the attention within. So it's a cornerstone of these practices that helps us to self-evaluate where we are, how we're doing. And what's very positive is that when we do the practices every day, according to our teacher, we feel benefits. We feel gains on multiple levels. And some of those gains include the interior perceptions. We tone down the dominant noise of our attention being drawn into the external sensory collage, the overload. And our perceptual abilities internally increase. We begin to attune to that peacefulness inside. We still in the Yoga Sutras, the teaching is that we have these whirlpools in the mind, the constant chatter, the turmoil that is obscuring our true identity. It's in the way of that inner peace. That path to inner peace is the pathway to that expanded experience. It's the pathway towards that transformation. It's the pathway that brings tremendous benefits in this life, in this week, in this year. We do the practice every day. We gain that inner peace. That inner peace is a learned habit. that comes through, it's developed and established through our daily practice. And what comes with that inner peace is, and through the swadhyaya, the self-analysis, and through living the teachings of the yoga, living the scientific methodology of the yamas and the niyamas, and the techniques of yoga, for example, the pranayama techniques, the pratyahara techniques, we make measurable progress that improves the quality of our life right now, next week, tomorrow, next year. We enjoy the gains. So we've got this abstract goal, but we can enjoy the pathway. We can enjoy the gains that we make. So the topic of predestination, I think it can be a distraction, and it can suppress the potentialities that each of us have.
There's another related. Yes, so would you like to
Actually,
add?
I'd just like to add to that.
Yes.
Though we may need, for example, what we do is that we may need 3,000 lifetimes to get moksha. Okay, that may be sort of the predestined. But then by how we live this lifetime, we may be able to burn up the karma of 3,000 lifetimes in one lifetime. So that is the shortcut. So the thing is, it is predestined 3,000 lifetimes of karma. It's like your karma baggage. Now, say you have 30 GB of internet net pack. You can use that 30 GB for 30 days or use it up in one day. So the same thing with your karma baggage. You have 30 GBs of karma. Either you take 30 lifetimes for it, or in one lifetime, burn it all up by self-effort. That is why the self-effort is the currency of spiritual evolution. And by self-effort, you can burn up the karma. My father used to tell a beautiful story of a guru with some disciples. And so one disciple asked him, Swamiji, how many lifetimes do I have for moksha? And he said 300 lifetimes. And the guy got so dejected. He's like, oh my God, 300 more lifetimes. And, he trudged out of the room with, such unhappiness and misery and suffering that he had to go through 300 lifetimes. Another disciple asked the Guru, he said, Guruji, how many lifetimes do I need? And the Guruji said, well, 3,000 lifetimes. And he said, wow, only 3,000 lifetimes. That's so wonderful. And in that moment, he attained moksha. And that is where the attitude changes destiny. The present moment attitude, that is why attitude cultivation has been given great importance in our culture, because the attitude with which you approach it will change the destiny. Destiny is changed by what you choose in the present moment. What we choose in the present moment becomes the destiny of tomorrow. Yesterday's free choice is today's destiny. And I think this is very important. Otherwise, we sort of think, oh, why should I make any effort? It's all going to happen when it happens. Well, it's going to happen when it happens if you do nothing about it. But if you do something, you can make it happen in this lifetime.
Wonderfully said. So it's the right attitude and choice, the power of choice. I think both these together would be a very heady combination for moksha. There's another question which is interesting.
The power of choice guided by the teachings of the masters.
Yes,
that's right.
Guided by the authentic yoga tradition.
True.
But then that brings me to another question before I take that. What if you don't find a teacher? What if you don't find a master and you are destined to go alone on your path? What happens then? Dr. Ananda.
I don't believe anybody is destined not to have a master. But the problem is, we think a master will have a long beard and wear orange and, be chanting Om all the time. I think it is our preconceived notion of what a master will be. A master could be your dog, for all I know. Your master could be a horse. Your master... See, Dattatreya had gurus of all types. So this is important, that anything that guides us, anything that enables us to strengthen our resolve to walk the path becomes a guide. So I'm sure there are multiple guides in our life, once we start looking in the right direction. But if we are looking for a pin-up guru, it may not happen, because the guru may be the person right in your life who you hate the most.
Okay. Well, that is a possibility. Well, here's a good question. Sonia, can you show it? Is detachment? I'll show it. No problem. Okay. Is detachment from this world's issues a prerequisite to go on a path of moksha? Can a housewife do that while continuing her daily life? Dr. Ananda, you can start, and then Yogacharya Bharata can take it up.
There is already a beautiful story in Indian culture of the housewife who was more spiritually evolved than the sannyasin, and then sent the sannyasin to a butcher who was already more evolved than that housewife. So this idea that, I'm a housewife, can I make it? Everybody can make it, okay? And you know what? That detachment doesn't mean not caring. Again, people, this word detachment is the problem. We translate detachment. It is not detachment, non-attachment. So there's a big difference, because detachment means I don't care about anything, anyone. That is not what Vairagya means. Vairagya means I care so much, I'm going to step back and do what needs to be done. So this is where non-attachment is a gesture of caring, loving, whereas detachment seems a bit insensitive and impersonal. So every human being can practice non-attachment, which is Vairagya. You don't have to have detachment. So this is just a small correction on that word, because the moment you say detachment, you think I don't have to care about my husband, I should not care about my children. No, you care about everyone so much, you are not going to be attached to them, because attachment is the root of all karma. Non-attachment frees you from karma.
One of the important principles here, I think, to keep in mind is that we have these concepts and these definitions and these teachings that are quite important, and they're part of a larger whole. And we don't want to get overshadowed by one teaching, by one concept of am I detached enough? Will I find the right teacher? What we want to do is understand that in the great tradition that we represent and we aspire to embody, the key is to embody the teachings, to do the practice every day, to see the eight limbs of yoga, the yamas and the niyamas, for example, guidelines on how we live our lives. We live those teachings. We live those teachings every hour of every day. That's a core part of the practice. Other core parts of the practice, when they're taught by a teacher with clarity of knowledge, rooted in tradition, those practices give very specific methodologies that, when done properly, we make progress on all fronts. To be more specific, in the Yoga Sutras, there are teachings that when we do the pranayama on a regular basis with the right attitude, with the right sankalpa, we remove the covering. We remove the shroud that hides the luminosity of the Atman. This is a specific roadmap. If we want to get to the goal, we need some roadmaps. This is one of many very specific roadmaps within the Yoga Sutras, within the Pradipika, within the Garanda Samhita, within the Bhagavad Gita. There are methodologies that we can work with, we can enjoy as we do it.
Yeah, so thank you. Those were great explanations. Now, but there's another interesting question. I mean, there are more questions than my question here. So let's take those questions, because people are curious and they need to know. So this question is interesting. You said someone instantly got moksha. Dr. Ananda, this is for you. You said someone instantly got moksha after hearing about 3,000 lifetimes. How do we know that we or someone has attained moksha? Are there any telltale signs?
That's a beautiful question. Well, normally we associate all of this with the person, disappearing into light. So you have stories in Indian culture. For example, Ramalinga Vallalar in South India 2 hours from Pondicherry, who just one day disappeared into light. So he became Jyoti Swarupa. So you have these type of stories. But what my father used to talk about this, he used to say, what happens before and after enlightenment? He said, before enlightenment, you do your gardening, you go to work and take care of your family. After enlightenment, you also take care of your family, go to work and do your gardening. But what has happened is, externally, it may look the same. Internally, there has been that huge shift of consciousness from individuality to universality, because now you are not an individual anymore. You are that universal being. And this is the state that then starts to be called a Jivan Mukta. So it becomes very difficult to know if somebody has had moksha or not. I would say that only a realized master would be able to understand that. And again, what would be a telltale sign? Does that person embody the divinity in their life? Does that person embody the highest universality in their life? Have they transcended the ego? Have they transcended the Shatripus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya? Have they transcended the need to grab everything? I think this is one of the telltale signs of someone who has attained moksha. So for me, someone who has attained moksha, one way is that when they leave the body, they don't have to come back. But again, we are not going to know about that. The second one is, even if they are in the body, they may be able to radiate that beautiful universal divinity through each and every moment of their life.
Great, lovely explanation. And I sometimes I think I understand what you mean, whether they have it in their lives or are they living it, because some people really radiate a certain purity. It's in the behavior, it's on their face. So we can assume that they have attained moksha, whatever is possible in our living and in this form. I think that's the way I would look at it. There's another interesting question.
There is always a limitation here,
Yes,
because
yes,
as long as we are in the physical body, we are bound by the laws of Prakriti, nature.
right,
So, we'll be close to it, but I do believe that you would have to leave the body to have that final grand experience, because
right.
the human body is still bound by the laws of nature. So
That's
you
right.
can have that experience, but I think that final sort of, merging into the cosmos, that final part, I think you do need to leave the body. This is a
Right,
firm conviction I do have. That's why we
right,
say, when the guru leaves the body, they have attained moksha.
right.
We use that term when they leave. We consider that the gurus are so elevated, they are already there. All they had to do was leave the mortal remains, and that they are now one with the cosmos.
Yeah, Yogacharya Bharata, you wanted to add something to that?
Yes, one of the cornerstone teachings of yoga is purification. This is one of the niyamas. It's an essential concept. It's an essential practicality that is a thread throughout all the teachings. Purification is not an abstract dogma. It's not some ethical moral judgment. It's a practical clearing, a practical clearing of blockages in our energy channels, blockages that hide the inner luminosity, that overshadow our connection with ourselves. We do the methodology of the practices to increase that purification, to clear those blockages. There's a common teaching in many traditions of practices of a Bhuta Shuddhi, which is practices of purification of the body, or more accurately, purification of our bodies, the layers of ourselves. And one of the teachings that's common to many traditions is that this purification makes us fit for worship. Now, a better way to understand it than fit for worship, in my opinion, is it helps us to become open and attuned. It expands our perceptual abilities. It gets the clutter out of our way that's preventing us from attuning. These practices, when we live the practices, we do the daily yogic practices every day, the internal prana shakti increases. the internal attunement, our internal perceptions deepen and expand. The range of perception is much greater than most of us experience every day. And the common teaching in so many traditions, the divine energies, the divine is within us. The pathway is within. So as our attunement expands, as our practices progress, as we gain this layers of purification, the purification involves elimination of karmic residues, and we become more aligned with Dharma, with that essential force underlying the universe, with spiritual law of Dharma. So it becomes easier for us to spontaneously live. We begin to get to a point where we can spontaneously live in accordance with Dharma. And then we are better aligned with these universal forces of Dharma. So there's greater synchronicity. Things go our way. The path becomes brighter and smoother. So
that's great. We've got only 10 minutes left, but I still have 3 questions to ask. One is from this. This is a very interesting one, and I'm going to put that on. We promise a spouse to be together in Dharma, Artha, and Kama, but not in Moksha. Isn't it a betrayal, Dr. Anandaji?
I think what happens is that I don't think it's a betrayal at all, because if we are together in the first 3, the last will happen on its own. In fact, in our South Indian tradition, if you look at the Tirukkural is the Tamil scripture, 1330 verses given by Saint Thiruvalluvar, who has this huge statue at the Kanyakumari. Thiruvalluvar has 3 parts of the Tirukkural: Aram, Porul, Inbam. Aram is basically Dharma. So Aram is the Tamil word for Dharma. Porul is the Tamil word for Artha. Inbam is the word for Kama. So the Tirukkural deals with Dharma, Artha, Kama, but doesn't deal with Moksha. So people say, why he hasn't dealt with Moksha? Why he didn't deal with Moksha is, if Dharma, Artha, Kama are taken care of, Moksha will happen automatically. So I think when we promise our spouse we will be together in Dharma, Artha, Kama, it automatically means if you can keep to these 3, Moksha will happen on its own. So definitely there is no betrayal at all there.
Great. I hope you got your answer. Well, now, since we have very little time left, I'm going to ask my 2 questions in one, the last 2 questions. And one is, must one aim for moksha? If I'm happy in the life birth and the death life cycle and rebirths and all, must I aim for it? Or is it a part of my inherent journey of life that I have to attain for it? Is that a must? Dr. Ananda, please tell us.
See, we are all going to have moksha someday. It's as
whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, it's going to happen one day. Because that is basically the journey of the drop. The drop has gone out of the ocean. The drop will come back into the ocean and become one with the ocean someday. Hum honge kamyab ek din, something like that. It will happen. Now the thing is, the desire to make it happen is called mumukshutva. The burning desire for liberation, mumukshutva, and the one who has it is called a mumukshu. So the mumukshu has mumukshutva, which is the burning desire for liberation. And when you have that, you speed up the process by doing what you need to do to eradicate the karma, remove all the obstacles that are there towards the attainment of moksha. But you know the secret? Mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation, can take you to the threshold of liberation. But then at the threshold of liberation, you have to give up even that desire for liberation to occur. So it takes you there, but then at that point, you even have to give up. And that is why it is called Paravairagya. And as my dear Deolal has pointed out, from the lower, we cannot understand the higher. At the lower, we understand the lower perspective. As we grow from the animal to the human, We move in our consciousness. As we move from human to divine, our consciousness expands, and then moksha becomes a possibility. But when we are stuck in the lower subhuman consciousness, moksha may not even attract us. Why should I want moksha? I'm having fun. Eat, drink, and be merry. Why worry about moksha? Yes, at the subhuman level, that is where we are. So we move from subhuman to human to humane to divine, and then at that moment, we do what we need to do by the power of choice, and moksha occurs.
Wonderful. So whether you like it or not, it's going to happen one day. My question would be, my question would be, finally, last few words from both of you. Is moksha a destination or a mirage? I think we've answered more of this, but just as conclusive, like conclusive remarks on this, is it our final destination? Whether we like it or not, you've already said that one day in one lifetime, it is going to happen. So, destination or mirage? Last words on that. Yogacharya Bharata, you can start.
If we do not aim for the highest, we won't come close. Aim for the highest, and if you miss by a little bit, you've gained a lot. If you like the dramas of reincarnation and the ups and downs and the intensity of this life, then, well, you'll get some more. But we want to set our goals high, and by setting our goals high, we gain, and all those around us gain, because the more we embody of that higher dharmic force, the greater effect we have on our family, on our community, on the planet.
I think those are beautiful words, because it is not just an individual journey. It is that by our making that journey, those around us also are benefited. And this is why I think spiritual growth towards moksha, which is a destination for sure, it is not a mirage, it's a destination. And every step we take mindfully, consciously, with awareness and self effort, not only benefits us, but benefits those who we live with, benefits the society in which we live, the humanity in which we live, the universe in which we live. And that is why it is not a selfish goal. Many people think desiring moksha is selfish. It's not selfish. It's actually selfless, because in you losing your lower self, you are gaining the higher self, and that will have a positive repercussion throughout the universe. And that is why we must make the effort, because once we have come to know about it, we have no choice but to start making the effort. There's no escape clause anymore. Ignorance cannot be an escape clause anymore.
Wonderful, wonderful closing words. The summary of this is, of this fantastic session, which you've already summarized, but I will do it again, is that we are all destined for moksha. To want it in this life, you have to follow the path of yoga, elevate your energies and elevate your vibrations, and along with that, take your family and society along with you, because you're not just looking for moksha for yourself, but it's going to benefit everyone around you and the world. I think, is that right, Dr. Ananda? Is my summary correct?
Perfect.
Okay.
Spot.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been a fantastic session. I think I'm so much clearer. I'm still hoping that in this lifetime I have moksha. Please bless me. Both of you, please bless me that I attain my moksha in this life. That is what I really want. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Thank you for sharing all your insights. Hope some of us have found their answers. Thank you, Yogacharya Bharata, Bill Francis Barry, Dr. Ananda, Balayogi, Bhavanani, and Dr. Manjiri Prabhu for being IFSI guests. With this discussion, we have come to the end of IFSI 2022. Thank you, all our guests, for participating and sharing your thoughts and knowledge with us. Thank you, audience, for attending the conversations and discussions. We hope you enjoyed and benefited from the discussions and are many steps ahead in understanding life. Hope to see you at the next edition of International Festival of Spiritual India in 2023. Thank you and good night.